Hello and welcome to Culture Express Extra. This is your weekly opportunity to see behind the scenes on Culture Express and meet, of course, some of the people that make the show happen. Today I'm delighted to say that we have another host with us. Last time we met Raquel Olson, and today we're meeting Julian Waghann. Hello, thank you very much for coming.
Hi Lee, well thank you for inviting me over to
How
this.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good. Now Julian just said to me that he's never been interviewed before. Of course, normally it's him doing the interviewing as opposed to being interviewed, the interviewee. So are you feeling all right about this? You feeling comfortable?
A little nervous.
A little bit nervous?
A little
just
nervous.
Relax, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh, I'm trying very hard.
Good.
I'm trying.
Julian, tell us a little bit about how long you've been on the show.
Well, I've been back with Culture Express for about 6 months now.
You say back?
Yes, because prior to this, I was working at the news with News Update. I was anchoring News Update for about 2.5 years. And before News Update, actually, I was my first position was with Culture. I first came into CCTV News working for Culture Express about 3 years ago now, I think.
So you must be one. I reckon you're one of the longest-serving hosts after Ji Jun. You are, aren't you?
Right now, yeah. I think so.
Wow. So you've come full circle. You've come back to Culture Express. And were you happy to come back? This is what you wanted.
This is absolutely what I wanted. It really is, Culture Express is, I would say, it's the reason why I joined CCTV. And, looking back now, it continues to be even more of a reason for me to be here, Culture Express. It's a very unique show. It's different from many of the other shows, all over the world. You have shows. It's very different because I think our program is still growing and still finding its niche. For it's maybe not as mature as some of the other developed shows, programs with other stations. But here at Culture Express, it's different because it's very interesting because it is in this growth process. We're finding we have a lot of liberty and license to try and to be creative with things. And also just because we have this, it's not so set, it's not so specialized. We're able to cover a lot more material from different genres, the range is greater than some of the shows, which might be limited because of its niche specialization. So it's the best place to be right now.
Great. Tell me a little bit about the types of reports that you like doing most. Because also I think that fits into your background. Tell me a little bit about where you trained, because you trained in the States, didn't you?
Yeah, Well, I grew up in the States. I was born in China. I grew up in the States. Went to school and did film, TV, and new media, and also I majored in French. That just happened. And so after I finished school, I actually went to France and studied French films and French art for about 2 years. Came back to the States again for grad school. Went to UCLA Film School. So it's in film. It's not. It's always been in film and the arts, but I've always been fascinated by the arts because my family background is my grandpa. He's a Chinese calligrapher and painter.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a Chinese calligrapher and painter, and my grandma, she's a photographer.
Get them on the show, Julian. Why haven't they been on?
He's had quite a few exhibitions.
Really?
Recently.
And what about you? Can you do the old calligraphy?
Oh yeah, I used to do that when I was little, but I haven't really followed the family tradition. But I'm sure it's in there somewhere, and that's why I'm back in doing culture. And my mom, she was a ballerina before she had me. She basically gave up ballet, gave up dancing for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Where was she practicing that? Where was she?
She was in northern China. She was supposed to join. She was supposed to. Well, the rumor had it she was supposed to join China Central Ballet before, after she had me, but because of me, she gave up and decided not to go into it because career span obviously is very short, and just raising a kid, it would require so much more attention. And it wouldn't be feasible having me and moving to Beijing and joining.
Sure.
Yeah.
So culture is literally running through your veins, Julian. You are culture, Chinese culture personified.
Bubbling
in front of us. Wow, amazing.
No.
Some of your reports that I really like watching are some of the things you've done at the NCPA, which has got its 6th anniversary coming up, hasn't it? In a couple of, I think next week. What do you think has been the most memorable thing over those 6 years? I mean, you've been on the show now for, as you said, over 3 years. Something really memorable that's happened at the NCPA in that 6-year period. Is there something that really stands out for you that you
It's very hard to say because I haven't covered culture for the entire span of 3 years. But recently I went to seeing Zhang Yimou's new Peking opera. It would be his maiden debut at Peking Opera with his new dab in Peking Opera. That was very impressive because it is his first directorial debut in Peking Opera, and also I think because he's a very iconic figure for China, and so the hopes were high for him for this Peking Opera, and it's very much in the style of Zhang Yimou, which is to say.
Tell me, sorry to interrupt. What is Peking opera, Julian? What is it? Because we have so many Peking opera stories. We also have lots of Kunshu opera stories, and there's lots of different types of Chinese opera, which is something that I'm learning more about working on this show. But if you could just summarize Peking opera in a sentence.
Oh, I wouldn't even try to summarize it in a sentence, but I mean, 3 sentences.
Tell us a little bit about the style of Peking opera and how it might be different from other operas that people maybe outside of China are more familiar with, like Western style opera.
Well, what you mentioned, Kunshu, which is another form of Chinese opera, Chinese traditional opera, and that is a little more refined. There are probably there are many different types, as you said. The Kunshu is a little more refined than the Peking opera. But in terms of Western opera, the difference between Western and Chinese opera, I think the first thing is Chinese opera is very symbolic. It's different from the Western operatic tradition, it's more about it's about approaching the reality of the world. It's about it's almost like in theater in the West, which is about finding the reality, finding the truth. Whereas in Chinese opera, it's symbolized. And for example, you have the masks in Chinese opera, which the different characters each are represented by different masks. So it's very symbolized, as opposed to we're not trying to be real. We're not trying to find the real. The character is not. It's
they're stock characters more.
They are, and also we have the liangxiang, the freeze at the end of each number of the gestures, and it's very funny because these freezes are. They're symbolized, and they're kind of like the psychological gestures that Stanislavski talks about in acting for a lot of the Western people who trained in acting in the West. They have these psychological gestures, and these Peking opera gestures are exactly the same thing. So but except it's formalized. And it's used as is, it's very, very symbolic. And I think it has to do with the fact that Chinese culture likes to be more nuanced than Western cultures, which is more straightforward. And Chinese art in general loves ambiguity and loves that. I think what it is it gives you more space for imagination. It's the same thing where we see if you were to look at If we were to look at a Chinese painting, a traditional Chinese painting, the shanshui, the landscape paintings, there's a lot of there's a lot of space that kind of balances with the mountains and the springs. That is because it gives you the space to use your imagination to fill in the rest. And the same thing happens if you look at, for example, films. Japanese films, Otsu films, uses a lot of long shots. He also uses a lot of off-screen sound. It lets you have characters that are talking off screen, and all you see is just a blank space, and so it gives you the liberty to use your imagination to fill in the blank in the off screen space, and that's the same thing with Peking opera too, I think.
So simple sets, but however that's offset with very elaborate costumes, isn't it? And the makeup, which is really, I think that's one of the main differences, I would say. But I've never seen one, but I would be really interested to see one. But they're very long, I hear, Julian. Are they very long, all of them?
The operas?
Yeah.
No, not necessarily.
No, okay, I just get very itchy.
They have still different stories. I'm not a master an expert on Peking opera. But Peking opera is very colorful. Compared to Kunshu, which is more, you've got these more pastel colors. It's very more nuanced, lighter colors. Whereas Peking opera, the colors are very vivid, very striking. It's very identifiable, the characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
I briefly wanted to touch upon a few things that are coming up in Beijing over the next couple of weeks. Now, obviously, it's Christmas next week, so we've got lots of Christmas events happening. But there's also Carmen is coming to NCPA, a production of Carmen, produced by the NCPA. That's happening next week. Have you seen that before?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No, I haven't.
Have you seen a production of Carmen before, though? Is that one of your
I don't
favourites?
believe I have seen it in Beijing, no.
Oh, it's so good. You need to see it. Carmen's brilliant. I mean,
Right.
obviously, it's very different from the type of opera that we've just been talking about, but that's coming up. Also, Mamma Mia is coming
Oh, that's great.
to Beijing. Did you know that? Have you seen the film?
I've seen the film, of course. I've seen all Meryl Streep's films.
Oh, really? You're a big
Yeah.
fan? Well, let's come back to Meryl Streep in a second, but Mamma Mia is coming to Beijing on the 24th of December, running for 2 weeks until the 12th of January. But they've translated all of the songs and all of the dialogue into Chinese, but using the same music. That's really, is that something that's quite common here, that they translate musicals directly to the same music, the lyrics?
Well, no, it's not.
I've never heard of that
It's
before.
It's not commonly done here in China. I know with Chinese audience, they have this thing with TV, with films. They love to see Chinese well, not just Chinese people. A lot of foreigners, they like to see films in because it's easier in dubbed in their own in their native language, because it's easier to understand.
Sure.
But then you do lose a lot of things,
Definitely.
especially for musicals, because it's not just about.
But particularly when the songs
are such an integral part of the.
And they're so well known as well. That's the thing about the ABBA songs.
Yes. So
I
I'm
wonder how
surprised.
Mamma Mia translates into
I would
Chinese.
think people who are musical fans would love to see them done in their original language.
Well, yeah, and you think that they would know the songs as well, and then hearing them in Chinese, it sounds completely different. We need to cover that. We need to get that.
We
on
definitely
show.
need to
We
go
need
and
the stars to
get it
come
covered.
in and get some.
I'd
Mamma
love
Mia
to
going
do
on.
that. Yeah,
So Meryl Streep, you're a Meryl Streep fan.
I am.
She's got a new film coming out next week, August Osage County. You're very excited about that. You've seen some trailers. You were saying
I've
before.
seen some trailers. Yeah, I'm trying to
Great.
get little peeks here and there, and
Yeah, I can't
get
wait
a
for
sense
that.
of the film.
Can't wait for that, because I remember the play when it was on in London and I was desperate to see it, but missed it. That was back in 2008, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
But speaking of films, I really loved Great Gatsby this year, though.
Well, yes, I was just going to ask you, Julian, because it is almost the end of the year, end of 2013, can you believe? Favourite film of the year? Do you think Gatsby's going to be up there, would you say?
It's a very memorable film. It's definitely, I think it's a very. I'm not sure it'd be everyone's favorite. It's a contentious. I would say it's a contentious film, and it's contentious because it's an American classic, and it's done in 3D, and that's something I think people should know. That is, 3D really helped to revive China's film market. When I first came to China 5 years ago, I would say there were very, very few people going to the movie, except people who were, I told you, who were dating perhaps. Very few people went to the theaters to see films.
Yeah, such a growing market now, isn't it?
Right, and because of Avatar, that the 3D brought back, it reinvigorated the Chinese film market, and people now, more and more people, because it gives a different experience that you can have at home.
Sure.
So now more and more people going to the movies because thanks to 3D.
Yeah. But you not only saw The Great Gatsby, you also met Baz Luhrmann and interviewed him, didn't you? How was that? What was he like? Nice guy?
He's a very nice guy.
Good.
Very nice guy, and he's quite an artist. He's got quite an artist in him, I would say.
And finally, Julian, another year roundup. If you could pick one report that you've done this year, one interview it could be, because I know you've met some very high-profile people this year. One moment that you could pick from this year, something that you have been involved in, what would it be?
Well, I would have to say the report that I did 2 weeks ago, probably, the Soleil Danza piece. That was a very memorable one, and one that I think really would stick with me for a long time. I have interviewed a lot of people who are celebrities and people of very, very talented people. But I think what draws people at the end, when we talk to so many people, is that report really, I can really identify with those people. Which is that it's about that. First of all, it's a report for it's an event held here in Beijing at the Italian Embassy and Italian Institute for disabled people, for International Day for Disabled People. It was a sound and dance thing. Kind of these people with handicapped, they put together over a 20-day period. It was a great show, but it's memorable because it really, I think, first of all, what it meant to me was that people, it was an integration, because a lot of these people not only don't they have a voice, they also don't have a presence in our society, which if you look at some of the more developed worlds, for example, special education in the United States, it's part of the educational system it's part of our school curriculum. You have special education that's integrated within our school system.
Yeah.
Whereas here you have special education schools that are set apart from the regular education system.
So it kind of ostracizes those people
Exactly.
from main society.
Which is not the best way to do these things,
No.
because they are a functional part of our society. And I think handicap, I think nowadays people would kind of be reluctant to say things are relative, but things are relative, especially when it comes to handicap. We all have our handicaps to a certain extent. Colorblind is that a form of is that a form of handicap as well, right? There's 10% of the population is colorblind or color deficient, so that's a form of handicap, disability as well. So it really let me see the different types of, we're all handicapped, but also we also are very talented. Each person has their own unique gift.
I thought it was a really inspiring piece, and also how music and dance can change people's lives with giving them a real inspiring thing to latch onto. I think that was the most interesting thing that I saw in your report. That they were so inspired by what they were doing. I thought that was really great. Julian, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been really interesting. We could sit here and talk for hours, but it's been really nice, and hopefully you will come on again so we can hear about what else you're up to.
I'd love to keep you updated.
Great, thank you, Julian, and thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you next time on Culture Express Extra.